Today on AcupunctureMasterclass.com, my #1 tip to make needling less painful for patients. Let's take a look. Welcome back to AcupunctureMasterclass.com, where we help students and early grads of acupuncture and naturopathic programs to be better acupuncturists. Today's #1 tip is don't skimp on the tap. Typically, early students and even some graduates, they just don't tap hard enough when they're inserting the needle. Today, we're going to go through all the details to make sure your tap is super strong and less uncomfortable for patients. Let's take a look. So as someone who's been teaching acupuncture for over 10 years, you start to see certain patterns, and there's one pattern in particular that first-year students seem to make, and it is neglecting to tap hard enough. If you want to get the needle in a painless way, tapping sufficiently will be the best method. So I just want to demonstrate a few things about this tap. It seems like an easy thing, but I just want to make sure you guys are straight on this. So with the tapping, there's a few key things that I want you to remember about. This is, of course, with tube insertion. Of course, if you're doing freehand insertion, you don't need to do the tap. But with tube insertion, gotta have a sufficient tap. So when it comes to getting close to your point, if you're on top of your point like so, you'll see a little bit of that handle sticking out of the tube. You need to make sure that you tap that sufficiently into the tube to get through the skin quick enough, and it makes things a lot less uncomfortable for your patient. If you skimp on the tap, you're not going to get very far, and it's going to be difficult to insert that needle, making it more uncomfortable for your patient. So this is the way I want you guys to do it. Getting to your needle site, a sufficient amount of pressure. So I'm holding it with my left hand as a right-handed individual. Sufficient amount of pressure of the tube onto the skin surface. You don't want to be just lightly on top of the skin. That just won't get it through the skin very easily either. So a good little bit of pressure right on top of the skin there. And then with your right hand, your dominant hand, a good strong tap. That tube should almost encompass the rest of that handle. And after you lift the tube out and with insertion, you're going to get that needle in a lot easier. A couple things to note about putting the tube on top of the skin surface. I mentioned that you do generally want a pretty good amount of pressure there. This is in particular for abdominal points. You know, the abdomen area is quite soft. You do want to make sure there's a good amount of pressure in that particular area. However, other areas maybe not so much pressure. For example, points like pericardium 6, you don't want to push really, really hard before tapping in because you may be just a little too close to the nerve in a case like that. So it really does depend on the anatomy that you're going to be working with. So making sure that if you're on the abdomen and most other places, a sufficient amount of pressure with the tube, good strong tap, and you are good to go. Now, of course, it's quite simple doing things perpendicularly. If you start to change things obliquely, same rules apply. You actually need to tap in a little harder because the needle is going through the skin even less when you're at an oblique angle. So making sure you get good contact with that tube onto the skin surface, and then a good strong tap, and this will allow you to get into your oblique angle quite easily. But a strong tap will make things easier every time. A simple thing to do, but a major impact on your client. So don't skimp on the tap. That's what I usually tell my students. Another point I wanted to make when it comes to tapping in the needle, I see this a lot with first-year students as well, is that when they're trying to tap in the needle, they're holding this tube far too high. Way up there. It gives you very little chance to actually tap that needle in. So you need to bring your fingers down basically around midway on the tube, and now you have enough space to actually tap that needle in sufficiently and go ahead and insert that needle. So make sure that your fingers aren't way at the top when you're holding that needle prior to tap. Bring those fingers down, give yourself a lot of room. It'll make that tap a lot easier. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for joining. Please send in your acupuncture quandaries. Any issues you feel you have and you would like to see a video on, send it. I'll do a video on it. We'll make it right for you. So please send your emails and video ideas at any time, and comment in the section below. Please subscribe. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.